Hey, I'm Chris Ralph, the professional prospector, and today we're going to take a look at black sands. It's something that prospectors have to deal with. If you're out panning or sluicing, dry washing, high banking, anything where you're processing gravels, you're going to end up with some black sand. And you're going to have to process it to separate the gold out of it. Now, this actually is stuff that I processed previously, but today we're going to take a look at two separate samples and the process of getting the gold out of it. We want clean gold that we can store or keep or sell to a refiner if that's what you want to do. So it's not really very saleable when you have a few pieces floating through a big old pan full of black sand. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to process a small sample of black sand that I have that has some gold in it, I know because I've seen it. We're going to take it all the way down to clean gold. And then I have a special package here from a friend of mine by the name of Rob Roy. And Rob has his own channel, Washington Beach Mining. He mines black sands on an ocean beach. And actually there are some ocean beaches, you know, Nome is probably the most most famous, but there are a lot of others too. And Rob has sent me a sample of his black sand concentrates in which he added 1/4 gram of gold. And my challenge on this is going to be to get at least 1/4 gram of gold out of it. Now, I'm not going to go through every step with you guys, but I will explain the whole process and demonstrate all of what I'm doing so that you can see it. Now, in the past, prospectors commonly used mercury, but I don't recommend mercury today. There's potential dangerous things. If you don't treat it properly, it can be hazardous. But I do admit, I used to use mercury in the past. Here is some amalgam that I made for myself. In the old days, I used to take all my dredging concentrates, the black sand from that, and I would take out what gold I could easily take out. But the last black sand that had some really fine gold in it that was hard to remove, I would usually, get it down. I'd be dredging and I'd get every year's concentrates down to just a few tablespoons of black sand. And then I'd put that last little bit in a jar with some mercury and I'd swirl it around. And, after a number of years, I pulled it out and I ran the mercury through a squeegee, through a cloth. And this is the cloth that I actually ran it through. And squeezed out the loose liquid mercury, and I ended up with this chunk of amalgam. Well, when I processed this, I got better than 1/2 ounce of gold out of it, but it was more than a decade's worth of dredging and the fine gold that was left behind. But still, it was a nice haul. Anyway, there's a lot of potential problems with mercury, and the regulators today are really afraid of it. And, if handled properly, it can be safe, but if handled improperly, it really can be pretty dangerous. But I've developed a better way, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate to you today. A better way of getting clean gold just using panning and normal panning techniques and some magnets. Now, people have used magnets before, and there's a danger to magnets. You put them in and you get an entire glob of gold or glob of black sand out, but this black sand will have gold trapped in it. And that's the downside of magnets, is you put them in too fast and they suck up everything, and you end up with not just black sand on the magnet, but you end up losing gold with it too. So I'm going to talk to you today my techniques for how not to lose gold with your black sand. What we're going to actually start with is a fairly weak magnet. This is a magnet I got out of a speaker. This is a moderately strong magnet that we're going to use. And then
a big, super strong, I keep it in protection so I don't get my fingers pinched, a very strong magnet at the very end. But we're going to use them in steps, and I'm going to demonstrate this whole process to you. So if you want to find out how to make clean gold out of your black sand, then stick around. We're going to go through the whole thing together. So for some people, black sand is a kind of a mysterious substance. Like, what is it? It's the heavy part of what you get when you process sand and gravel. But you know, it can contain, in addition to just gold, platinum, diamonds, tin, tungsten, all kinds of stuff. So let's talk about first, let's sit down and talk about what is black sand and what is it really made of?
So what is black sand? That's a question some people ask, and like I say, it is a mystery to some. Well, it forms because many minerals in the earth are not really stable to weathering, and the effect of rainwater and oxygen changes them. And literally, rocks that are super hard and strong will eventually get weathered and become soft. And this is basically how soil is formed. Dirt and that sort of thing, because the minerals in some rocks just break down and become soft and porous. Well, some of the minerals are more durable, and these are the ones that survive to get freed as particles and enter into streams. Heavy minerals are the durable ones that have above average density. Most are dark colored because they contain iron, but then some are lighter. The most common heavy minerals that form your heavy concentrate sands include hematite, magnetite, garnet, ilmenite, rutile, and zircon. Now, of these, only zircon is light colored. Okay, the rest of them are all dark, and these accumulations are found in stream beds where the stream flow energy is sufficient to carry away the low density minerals like clays or even to a certain extent, quartz sand, but the heavy minerals get left behind. And included with the heavy minerals that are durable is any gold. Okay, that's why gold, because it's also heavy, like the minerals I just mentioned, it accumulates in your heavy black sands. Thus, the heavy minerals that are resistant to weathering and abrasion concentrate in certain areas in a stream, like the inside bends and behind boulders and that sort of things. And even though these heavy minerals may only be a small percentage of the local rocks, they tend to accumulate. In addition to the gold, in placer mining, some deposits also carry things like cassiterite, which is an ore of tin, and chromite, which is, like it sounds, an ore of chromium, and diamond, platinum, and zircon. Actually, zircon is a mineral that contains a rare metal called zirconium that is used in certain things. So this is a little bit about what black sand is. And certainly it's common stuff. If you're a placer miner, you'll end up, like I do, with a lot of this kind of thing that you have to deal with. So what are exactly those minerals? Well, magnetite is an iron oxide and contains both ferric and ferrous iron ions, and it's strongly magnetic, and it usually is a large percentage of black sand. Hematite is another iron oxide, dark in color, but only very weakly magnetic, and it's found in a moderate amount in a lot of black sands. Ilmenite is an iron and titanium oxide that is very slightly magnetic and is usually a small portion of the black sand. Garnet, usually dark, but one of the things about what the percentage of these are is it varies a lot. I mean, in some places there's loads of magnetite, in other places there's hardly any. In some places there's loads of garnet. Like I say, it's variable, the proportion. There are places where the heavy sands are deep red in color because of all the garnet that's inside them. Zircon is another heavy mineral. It's a zirconium mineral, like I say. Various pyroxenes and amphiboles, these have iron usually in them, and so they're dark in color. And then rutile, which is a titanium oxide. It's not magnetic. And usually these are all small parts, but they are a part of black sands in a lot of different places. Now, there are some rare minerals found in black sand, and I mentioned one of these, cassiterite, which is a tin. It's basically the most important ore of tin. It's valuable in some placers, and in fact, in some places, the placer mining is not done for gold. It's actually placer is mined for its tin content because there's so much cassiterite in the heavy concentrates. The same thing with chromite, which is valuable in some places. Wolframite, which is a tungsten mineral, important tungsten ore. And again, it's valuable in some places. And then, of course, there are certainly placer diamonds that are mined. It's not very common, but in some places where there are significant placer diamonds, then yeah, it's very valuable. Same thing with platinum. It's rare, but it's valuable in some places. Monazite, which is a rare earth mineral, again, valuable in some places. And scheelite, another tungsten mineral, also valuable in some places where there's enough of these rare things in the gravel, that they can be mined for these unusual minerals.
So today we're going to be using a standard finishing pan to take care of these black sands. But there are other ways of doing it, and other guys have other techniques. I'm not saying mine is the only one. There are a lot of different ways to process black sands. One popular way is with the blue bowl. A blue bowl actually is pretty good because you're letting the flow of water do the work for you. And I can tell you a little bit about it. Okay, so I've got my concentrates, my black sands, into my finishing pan, and this stuff is, it's got black sand in it, but it's not super duper difficult. The first thing I'm going to do though with this is there's still some quartz sand and other light materials left in there, so I'm going to just kind of shake it real good to let the gold settle down, and then I'm going to wash off the lighter materials. I'm going to do this until I've gotten most of the black sand and other light materials out, and I'm getting down to the end. You see I shake it again and more light materials come to the surface that I can wash off. There's a lot of different small finishing pans out there too. This isn't the only one. Excuse the train in the distance. I'm only about a quarter of a mile from the railroad tracks, and they make a lot of noise. But anyway, I'm not going to have you sit and watch me as I go through panning this down. I'm going to go ahead and do it, and then I'll come back to you and show you the step using the magnets. And you'll note that I'm panning into a tub, so I'm not going to lose anything. Anyway, I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so I've gone through and taken out as much of the light material as I can, and then I'm going to use my larger pan with a big bottom, the big flat underside, and I'm going to start spreading this out as thin as I can, because the whole idea of using magnets is, like I say, you don't want to suck up the gold along with the black sand. And so I'm going to hold this, I'm going to start with the weakest magnet, and I'm going to hold it above the material and shake it as I go. And see, I'm getting just a little bit. I'm getting the strongest and most magnetic stuff to stick to the magnet. Not collecting a whole lot with this really weak magnet, but I'm getting some. And we're taking out some of the strongest magnetics. And I've got some there, so I'm just going to peel that off. Wash it off my hands. See, this is a case where having a weaker magnet is actually better. You can shake it to get any loose material off. Because a weak magnet like this will not have the strength very well to suck up magnetics and gold at the same time. And I've got this, well, I would suggest if you're doing something like this for the first time, that you go into a test pan, you'll pan into a tub. And that's the first shot, the first go round, is with this weak magnet. Okay, so I'm finishing up with the weak magnet. Shake it to make sure that there's nothing there. And the next step, you should be able to start to see in the pan that I'm getting some decent gold. It's starting to show. Now I'm using the stronger magnet, and I will shake it around and keep it well above the surface there, because we don't want to suck up anything from that includes gold. Probably also seeing that my the black sands are getting lighter, you know, that we're basically sucking up a lot of the magnetic portion of the black sand, and the remainder is more brown. Okay, so the final step is going to be the really powerful magnet. So I'll get that out, and it will suck up a lot of things that the other magnet just won't. But what's happened is we've gotten all the really strongly magnetic stuff out already. And there's one little piece that got stuck. It is possible there are some bits of gold that get wrapped around a little piece of magnetite, or they grow around a little piece of magnetite. And so you have to be careful when using a magnet. Take a look, you know, make sure you're not accidentally sucking up one of those types of pieces of gold. Okay, that's about it for the heavy duty magnet. And you can see it didn't get as much as the medium magnet, even though it's a lot stronger, simply because there just isn't that much left to get. And now I'll switch back to the finishing pan. Okay, so I'm back to having my gold in the little pan, and I'm just going to use a standard kind of panning technique of shaking and washing. Eventually, when I get down to just the gold, I'll be doing a little more bit of special shaking and washing. But this takes a little while to go through and wash the rest of this off, although it's way easier once the magnetic portion of the sand is removed. It's just loads easier, because what's left is some dark colored minerals that aren't nearly as dense, and some light colored minerals like zircon that aren't nearly as dense, and some remaining bit of quartz sand which isn't dense at all. So I'm going to do this and get it down to the very end. I'll show you the last little end steps that I do to take it to pure clean gold. Okay, so I filmed this last segment yesterday to show you the technique that I use at the very end to get the gold clean, and all the other segments came out fine. This segment didn't come out right. So we're going to do it over again today. And basically I've reset up what I had there, which is the gold and the last little bit of black sand. So on this thing, I do kind of a circular washing technique, and I use my fingers a lot just to wash out. You know, you can push back any gold you see and push forward the black sand. And it goes fairly fast. I mean, really, it's not that difficult a process. Your thumb is very handy to use. And almost all of this It's black sand. The gold wants to stay in the middle because it's heavier. When you circle around like that, the black sand just works its way out. And it doesn't take too long, and you're down to a pretty clean final product. And if you do it in the sun, you can see the gold pretty plainly. We'll cut forward on this, kind of speed the process up, just so I can get to the end and show you the clean gold. You also have the option of not necessarily dipping the entire pan in, just the part where there's the black sand sticking out. Another technique is just to let the water flow out very slowly. The gold, because it's heavier than the black sand, will want to stay behind. You can see I've pretty much got this to a completely clean bit of gold at the end, ready for weighing up, ready for storage, ready for shipment to a refiner. All done. So I was going to do a whole nother section about the beach sand, but this has been so long, it's been such a long video set, that I'm going to do a part 2, and we'll take a look at the blue bowl and the beach sand, and we'll work on it, and you'll get to see all of that in part 2 coming up. But right now, if you want to be a better prospector, I've got a book that I've written, and I want to tell you a little bit more about that.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you a little bit more about my book. I wanted to be able to share the knowledge that I've gained about finding gold and how to be successful. And so I spent years literally writing this book, Fistful of Gold. It's more than 350 pages long, which is why I say it's an encyclopedia of everything you need to know about finding your own gold. I've sold more than 8,000 copies, and I've got a lot of really great feedback on it. It just is the most complete book on the market. It has information about finding gold that literally is not available in any other book that you're going to find for prospectors, because I took technical stuff from geologists and other mineral scientists, and I've translated that into language that the average guy can understand. You don't need a PhD to go out and find gold, but the information that scientists have learned over recent decades can be of a lot of help to people. So it's in this book. If you're interested about finding gold, panning, sluicing, nugget detecting, dry washing, the geology of gold deposits and how they form, it's all in here. And like I say, it's more than 350 pages long. So if you'll just go to the description underneath this video, you can take a look. I've got a link in there to take you to Amazon, to the site where the book is sold. and I think you'll really enjoy it. Take a look at all the people who've commented on this and have really liked the book. It has a very, very high rating for a book. And also, I have a website, my own free website that you can take a look at. I've got all kinds of information on here about doing research and how to find gold, a lot of good information, stuff that basically couldn't fit into my book. And so I put it on this website, and I have a link also for that in the video description. So take a look in the description, and you can click on the link, and it'll take you to my website. And finally, if you like this presentation, I've got a lot more coming out. Here's a 3.5 ounces of gold that I found a couple of years back in one area. I've got a lot more of these videos coming on gold, gemstones, hard rock, placer, a lot of metal detecting. There'll be lots of metal detecting stuff. So if you really enjoyed this, click the subscribe button and then tick the notification bell off, and YouTube will let you know when I publish new stuff. And hit the like button as well. And please comment on these videos, because I'm interested in what you have to say, and I promise to answer any questions you have. So if you are wondering about anything, or think maybe I didn't cover something thoroughly enough in a video, then let me know, and I'll be happy to try and help you out and give you whatever information you need. So thanks a lot, and hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you again real soon.